We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
The perilous state of the Second Amendment in America is once again dominating headlines. Whether it's Joe Biden's rhetoric on weapons of war or states taking action against the nebulous term assault weapons, it seems that the right to bear arms cannot catch a break. Now, we're fortunate to be joined by Liberty Nation's editor-at-large, Jim Fight, who is our fount of all knowledge on all things firearms. Welcome back to the show, Jim.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark.
So, Jim, let's start off examining the language that politicians use to decry the Second Amendment and the associated facets of it. What is, in your professional opinion, an assault weapon?
Oh, it's a boogeyman. Assault weapon is the term assault weapon and the related term assault rifle, which I highlight for a moment for a reason you'll see here in just a moment. It is a fear-mongering propaganda term, right? Like it is designed specifically to create a straw man. The illusion of the image of Americans armed with AR-15s or AK variants as these radical militants that are a threat to their neighbors. And the way it works is, this is, by the way, not a real term. Like, it's not a real firearms term. It's completely made up by left-wing politicians. But there is a real firearms term called the battle rifle. And a battle rifle is the actual military rifle, which is usually a select fire rifle, which means that you can swap through modes of firing. So you've got a semi-automatic, or you might have a 3-round burst or a fully automatic. So it's sort of that transition between what we would call a semi-automatic sporting rifle or home defense rifle. It's sort of the transition between that and a full auto all the time machine gun.
Okay. So assault weapon, I mean, it's used so often, even when people are discussing laws, gun control laws specifically.
Right.
And I think this bothers so many people because it's a dog whistle to those who don't really understand anything about weapons. And I'm sure
it really is. I just want to highlight real quick. There's actually a common misconception that AR stands for assault rifle.
When we all have
Armalite Rifle is the company that made it.
We happen to know that AR-15 stands for Arizona. No, and
That's it. Yeah. How many Arizonans can be shot in a second?
AK-47 means it was made in Arkansas, right? Is that
Alaska?
Alaska
AR is actually Arkansas, and AZ is Arizona.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Alaska and Arkansas. So yeah, they use this language, assault weapon, when they're speaking about writing legislation, and surely that should disqualify anybody from writing legislation if they can't use a specific term. They're using a made-up term that has no particular definition. And surely that way lies the tyranny of lawfare, doesn't it?
I would say so. I wrote for Liberty Nation. Man, I don't even remember when it was. It was several years ago. An article that I titled something along the lines of "We need more gunsplaining," and I made the argument in that article that you don't have to understand guns. That's, I won't impose a hobby or an advocacy on anyone. Like, I don't really care about knitting, so I didn't learn about knitting. But if you intend to write laws on the subject, yeah, you're obligated to understand it, I think.
Knit one, pearl one. Absolutely. You're talking about firearms here, not knitting, presumably. Now, Jim.
Well, I mean, hey, look, if you want to write laws on knitting, learn knitting.
Absolutely. Now, Washington state lawmakers, they're pushing an effort to prohibit, I think it's the sale, manufacture, and import of what they term assault weapons. Now, what specifically is this proposed legislation saying?
Well, a few things, and this will kind of work as partial answer to both your original question and this question. I'll read you the direct quote from the legislation. It's not very long, of how the legislation defines an assault weapon. So it says, quote, "Assault weapons are civilian versions of weapons created for the military and are designed to kill humans quickly and efficiently. For this reason, the legislature finds that assault weapons are like M16 rifles and are thus weapons most useful in military service," where they added quotes to the things that I added emphasis to. Um, and and of course, the problem with that is again that distinction between a rifle that can actually fire fully automatic or 3 round burst as opposed to only semi-automatic. These are not military rifles. They kind of look like military rifles, so
Hmm.
I guess give them that much. But it also, they're also it's for the most part it's standard assault weapon ban fare. Mostly cosmetic stuff. Not everything's cosmetic, but mostly is cosmetic stuff. Um, Although one thing actually did stand out to me, and that was they banned the thumb hole stock. And what the thumb hole stock, what that means is, I guess, I mean, the only thing that comes to me is what's called a sporting stock,
Right.
which is it's a wooden stock. It doesn't have like a pistol grip. It's kind of like a conventional rifle stock, but it has a grooved section in the butt stock where your shooting hand, you can get your thumb wedged in and get a better grip on it. And it's actually it was designed for hunters to increase accuracy over long range shots.
So
So
essentially,
it's not really a mass shooting kind of thing. It's more
let,
like a let me make sure I kill this deer humanely kind of thing.
let me just check you on this, Jim. Does that mean
Yeah.
that the proposed legislation here is actually seeking to ban something that would make somebody shooting a firearm more dangerous because they would have less control over the precision pointing of the barrel?
There, you've hit it. You've hit it, Mark. I was grinning when you started to say that because I knew that's where you were going with it. That's exactly one of the things that blows my mind about some of these laws. I kind of see where they're coming from. They want to hinder your ability, well, not your ability, but they want to hinder a violent criminal's ability to target someone and take them out. The problem with that is every time you fire around, it's going somewhere.
Hmm.
So if it doesn't hit your intended target, who or what does it hit?
This is precisely why all the best gun ranges, outdoor gun ranges, have huge hillocks behind the targets because the bullet's going to go
Absolutely.
somewhere.
Absolutely. It's
Well,
also why nobody stands down range and points and goes, "Hey, shoot right here." Like,
yeah. Yeah, I've never seen anybody stand down range, although I have seen people come close on an archery range, which was worrying enough. Now, what is the state of this proposed legislation? Now, I believe currently it's ready to head to Governor Jay Inslee. Now, based on his past record, would you say that he's likely to sign it into law?
I think it's likely. His stance on the Second Amendment. He has said in the past that quote gun violence is a public health crisis. Uh, Arming teachers is ridiculous, and he has actually, as recently as January of this year, advocated banning assault weapons. So there's your answer right there. Of course, he's going to sign this bill.
Right. Okay, and so we can presume that Washington State will then uh, well, it seems to sorry, Jim, I'm being a bit nebulous here, but it seems to me that the language of the proposed legislation could be in itself nebulous and therefore is likely to be challenged in numerous instances through the courts, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely. I mean, I suppose I should use my weasel words, as they say, and say it will probably be challenged.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this law will be challenged.
Yeah,
I mean, now how successful that challenge will be, we'll find out. But
all depends on which circuit it ends up in, I guess. Now, Jim, are there any other efforts around the country that are prominent right now about banning firearm sales or restricting ownership?
yeah, so right now, of course, you always want to look at New York and California. Um, those are kind of givens. Uh, the Bruin decision notwithstanding, but I suppose we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yep.
But at the moment, Colorado is also considering a similar ban. So Colorado, Washington will probably be the next state to have an assault weapons ban of some sort. Colorado may very well follow suit soon. Of course, Delaware passed a so-called assault weapons ban back in June of last year, and Illinois actually January of this year. So,
well, with Delaware, I'm not too surprised because apparently they have a problem with angry old dudes firing shotguns in the air.
right,
Not
double barrel,
not,
yeah, both barrels,
both
by
barrels.
the way, just completely emptying it into the air, which is in itself a crime.
Yes, but of course, it only matters when people who aren't the present president of the United States do it. Now, after this short break, we'll be back with James Fight discussing the ever-progressing state of concealed carry laws in the United States. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative Five. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe
You only
space.
did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative Five.